You're listening to the DC Comics Chronicles, where we cover every adventure from the streets of Gotham to the skies of Metropolis and into the depths of Atlantis. With your hosts, Adam and Chris.
Welcome to another episode of the DC Comics Chronicles. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, Chris. Chris, how's it going?
Happy to be here with you, Adam. How's it going with you?
Doing well, sir. Doing well. It's
cool.
It's an interesting time to be, and fun time as well as interesting to be a DC fan. We got a lot coming up. We've got the Batman. As of this recording, is mere days away.
I have my ticket already.
Nice. When you going?
Thursday night at 8:30.
Oh, you got the preview screening. Cool.
Yep.
I'll be seeing it the day later on the Friday, but we've got Peacemaker just wrapped up its first season, which that's our main topic tonight. Before that, though, a couple little minor topics to kind of cover. So, Chris, did you see the little 1 minute TV spot for the DC films in 2022?
Yeah, the basically it was like a sizzle reel for all four of the live action.
Black Adam, Flash, and Aquaman.
Yeah.
What'd you think of it? What were some of your thoughts on the footage? I mean, I know the Flash was basically the Michael Keaton voiceover, but we did get a new shot of the Flash's mask and cowl, and it seems like he's got some when he's gearing up to run at high speeds, he's got some lenses that come down and cover the eye pieces on the cowl, which I thought looked really cool.
Yeah, I really liked that visual. It's something we haven't seen before.
Right, and then so that was really cool. And again, hearing that Michael Keaton voiceover, that's never going to get old, even though I heard it in the fandom little preview. And then we saw...
but we got a little bit different dialogue out of Keaton this time, right? Because he's saying something... He's saying something about, like, if you could go to any universe, why are you trying so hard to save this one?
Yeah,
I think we've heard that before.
Good point. It might be a little bit of a tweak on it. Yeah. So that kind of confirms that what we kind of assumed, where that when he first meets Keaton, he's clearly in the '89, the Burton verse, if you will.
Right.
And then what happens subsequent to that to get him to where we end up in the end of the film, and as the Batman of this reshaped DCEU will be the interesting thing to find out. And then Black Adam had a bunch of cool new footage because we haven't seen much from that film. So all of it was new footage. And the thing that really stuck out to me was the shot of Hawkman unleashing his wings. I mean, that looked incredible. And I got to tell you, I'm super pumped for the Batman, which is days away, and the Flash, because of all the reasons to be pumped for the Flash. But I think the introduction of the JSA on film through Black Adam is going to be something special, because I think that offers a lot of potential spin-off material, which is something we know HBO is keen on tapping into. So what did you make of the Black Adam stuff? Did it move the needle for you in terms of excitement, the brief bits that we got?
I mean, I'm already hyped for this movie.
Yeah.
The build up for it. I mean, it's been since 2007 when The Rock was mentioned as being in this movie.
Yeah.
Now it's finally happening. Yeah, I'm stoked for it. I'm excited. And the little bits that we got in the trailer, we saw Black Adam very quickly, but we saw a full body shot, which I don't think we've seen him without the hood on yet. So I think that was the first time.
Yeah.
You mentioned the shot of Hawkman, which I thought looked really good. There's a little bit of Dr. Fate in there, and wasn't
Yes.
there some Pierce Brosnan talking about it as well?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He was holding the helmet. Like you actually saw him as Kent Nelson without the costume on, and he's holding the helmet. He's got the helmet in his. But it seemed like he was asking Black Adam to join the team in that exchange. So we'll see how that response goes down. But that it just looks phenomenal. Like the visuals and the different costumes, like Dr. Fate and Hawkman, they look like right off the page. So yeah, I can't wait for that. And then we got just a very little snippets from Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, or the Last Kingdom, I should say. But at this point, with Aquaman, I'm not concerned. Like I know, I have an idea based off the first one what to expect. So I'm just expecting that just tenfold because they usually ramp things up for a sequel. So that to me is like a no-brainer in terms of excitement. So even though we didn't get that much of it, so it's a pretty cool little sizzle reel to get hyped for what's to come this year from DC. Certainly, the potential for it to be DC's best year in terms of live action output is there. I think.
And there's one other theatrical release this year that was not included in that sizzle reel, but it's not live action. It's the animated DC Super Pets movie,
which I think is going to bring in a whole different set of audience and eyes to DC and the mythology, and that's a good thing. I mean, like that's something. I mean, I don't know what you're like. Have your kids seen the Super Pets trailer? Are they excited for that or?
Yeah, Luke wants to go see it for sure.
Okay, all right. So they're primed and ready for that. Yeah. So yeah, again, and one of the things that wasn't mentioned, but again, I think it's because it's an HBO Max exclusive, whereas this sizzle reel was highlighting just theatrical.
Right.
Was Batgirl. There's been a lot of speculation because, well, first of all, what could they really show? Because they're in the midst of filming now. I mean, to cut something together, I guess they could have, but when you're not done filming, it's better just to finish filming and then show us something when the time is right. But at least in terms of footage. But so there's been a little bit of question. We've been told it's 2022, but we don't have a firm date as to when it's going to debut on HBO Max. And so a lot of people were questioning, well, could it get moved to 2023? Like, is it a sure thing that it's going to drop in 2022? And so what happened was the other day, I think it was 2-3 days ago as of this recording, Michael Keaton dropped basically what it amounts to a selfie of his Batman shadow. Which I know is a selfie of his shadow, but I still went nuts for it.
Yeah.
Because that's the power of Michael Keaton's Batman, where I'm concerned. And so what happened was Michael Uslan, who's the main producer of all Batman film content, he shared that on social media and said, returning in 2022, in November and December, Michael Keaton as Batman. So we know Flash is coming in November, and now we've got confirmation that by December of 2022, we're going to get that Batgirl film. So I'm really excited about that, and I think strategically, I think Batgirl will drop in between the release of The Flash and Aquaman. So somewhere in between, HBO is going to fill that spot and give us Batgirl. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it sounds like we have a lot to look forward to at the end of this year. So the Aquaman's December, right?
Yeah.
And isn't the Flash November?
Flash is November, yeah. And
Okay, so if we're trying to fit Batgirl in there, it's got to be, late November, early December.
right, yeah. I'm guessing early December because I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think Aquaman comes out either the week before or the week of Christmas.
Okay.
So it's going to get that Christmas box office, which is what it benefited from for the first one. So it's good to capitalize that. So, we have Flash at the beginning of November. My guess is Batgirl will be probably beginning of December. Because you think about it, when Flash ends, whatever happens in Flash kind of leads Michael Keaton into Batgirl. So it makes sense that shortly on the heels of Flash, Batgirl would make its debut. So that's how I think it'll play out. But either way, we've got a hell of a schedule. I mean, next week the Batman, July Black Adam, and then at the end of the year, the 1-2 punch of Flash and Batgirl. I mean, what a difference a couple of years makes. I don't think you or I, if they would have asked us, 3 or 4 years ago, if somebody told us you're getting 5 DC live action projects in 1 year, I think we would have laughed in that person's face and said, "Yeah, right. I don't believe you." So this is fun. I can't wait. I'm excited for it all. I really am, and bring it on is what I say. But again, the good folks at HBO Max didn't keep us wanting because they gave us Peacemaker. All 8 episodes of the season 1, and I can describe it as season 1 because it's been announced that there will be a season 2, and the whole thing will be written and directed by James Gunn. So that's great news. So let's get right into the review of season 1, Chris. So before we start talking about the show itself, when you heard about a Peacemaker show coming to HBO Max, what was your reaction?
Okay. The Peacemaker series was announced before the Suicide Squad came out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So at the time, I was lukewarm on the news because I knew it was being headed by James Gunn, and my most recent experiences with James Gunn had been Guardians of the Galaxy, which I absolutely loved,
Yeah.
and Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which I was not a fan of. So
right. Yeah.
I was not excited, but I would say I was more into the idea after seeing the Suicide Squad and wondering how are they going to change this character and make him somebody I care about for 8 episodes.
Yeah. I was pretty much in a similar boat, whereas, I loved Guardians 1. I thought it was fantastic. Guardians 2 was a step backwards for the franchise. I thought. I mean, it's still decent, but it wasn't on the level of the first one for me. And then, Peacemaker. I had never heard of Peacemaker, so to me, that's like, all right. I don't know who that is, but I understand why you want to do a show on him because it's John Cena in the role, and he certainly has a fan base, from his time in WWE. So you'll get eyeballs on it. But before seeing the Suicide Squad, I had no idea who Peacemaker was. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess we'll see. And then I saw the Suicide Squad, and I love that film. But again, it's like the character of Peacemaker was so despicable at that point, and some of the things he did. Spoilers: killing Rick Flag and threatening to kill Ratcatcher. Right? If he hadn't been stopped by Bloodsport, he would have. that I'm like, yeah, the guy did a good job in making me hate him, and he was so cocky, so arrogant, so crude that and then the stuff he made you hate him. But how are you going to transition that into leading a series for 8 episodes? And sure enough, boy, did they do it, and did they actually succeed? They actually did succeed in making me care about this individual, which didn't seem likely after watching the character in the Suicide Squad, because he played such a hateable character. So, I honestly, I love this show, and I didn't expect to be uttering those words when we first heard of the prospect of a series. So give us a brief kind of general synopsis of what this show is about, Chris.
A brief general synopsis.
Yeah.
Okay. Peacemaker is tasked by Amanda Waller with joining a group to take out an alien parasitic species that is controlling people's bodies from the inside. All the while, he is trying to reconcile with his father, who at first claims that he's going to tell the police about what his son is up to, and secondly, tries to kill him.
Yeah. Very well put. So, to me, like, I just find it fascinating that, like, if you look at the team, like from the outset, when you first meet this team, the only one that has any real, I guess, credentials to believably have a shot at doing anything against an alien threat is probably Peacemaker, even though because we had seen him do that in the Suicide Squad. Whereas you have Hardcore, who is an absolute badass, yes, but at the end of the day, she's just a human being. She's an agent, but a human being nonetheless. Then we have John Economos, who is basically the tech guy.
Right.
So it's like, well, what the just when you first meet him, it's like, what the hell is he gonna do against an alien threat? You've got
Adebayo,
who is Amanda Waller's daughter, who, early on in the premiere, basically explicitly says, "I don't belong here. This is not my thing. Like, I just want to go home and be with my wife," right? And then you have the sort of the team babysitter, which is
Mern.
Yeah, Mern, and he kind of, throughout the course of the early episodes, alludes to having some background in handling himself in battle. But again, we thought initially that he was just another human being. So it's Peacemaker, who is sort of kind of extra special with his gadgetry and all that. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Peacemaker has any powers, right?
I don't believe he's enhanced. No,
it's all just down to the helmet and basically his general craziness. So I get that Waller would want to put a team like this together, because at the end of the day, they're all expendable. With the you think with the exception of her daughter, but
right.
Aside from her daughter, I don't think Amanda Waller would give a crap if any of these people died on the job. Like, she wouldn't even bat an eyebrow, So, or an eyelash, I should say.
And they outright threaten Peacemaker when they're trying to convince him to join the team. They say, "Look, man, you still have that thing in your head. We can blow you anytime we want to." So
yeah, so he's there reluctantly.
She not only is not worried about their lives, but she's actually outright threatening at least one of them.
Yeah, right. So, that was interesting. just the collection of characters that make up these teams. Because again, on this, and this is part of what makes it interesting and what makes it also funny at the same time. On the surface, you're like, what shot in hell do they have, right? But then that's why you get hooked in, because you're like, I want to see how they tackle this, how they confront this alien threat. Then right away or early on in the series, you start seeing what we talked about earlier about how are they going to make us care about a guy that was, so deplorable in the Suicide Squad. Well, I mean, the minute you meet his father, you're like, oh, now I understand why he is the way he is, because his father is first of all, he's a former supervillain, right? By the name of, what did he go by? His alternate White Dragon, which is essentially, when I look at him in that suit, don't get me wrong, the suit looked awesome. Like put together, it looked very badass.
It was badass.
It is essentially Nazi Iron Man,
right?
It's call him what he is. But just the sheer, like, the stuff that comes out of his mouth, it's like, now I've got somebody to hate more. Like, I thought Peacemaker was bad. This guy's 30 times worse.
Right? And we see through flashbacks how he has impacted his son's life from the time that his son was a child.
Yeah.
And it does start to bring you around to Peacemaker a little bit, because you're starting to feel an empathy for him, and you know where all of his douchiness comes from too.
Yeah, like he used to make the two brothers fight in like illegal, I don't want to call them underground. I mean, I guess you'd call them underground fight. Like what was it? It was an outdoor. Like it was like they were basically. It was like a Nazi barbecue, and they were fighting as entertainment. And it's like, what the?
For money too.
Yeah, and money.
Their father was taking bets.
Yeah, and it's like, no wonder the guy screwed up. And then you find what happened to his brother. In the course of one of the fights, his brother accidentally dies as a result of as a consequence of the fight, if you will, and then through an accident. And of course, Peacemaker blames himself. Doesn't help that the father, every chance he gets, is drilling it into him that, you're a screw up. It was your fault that your brother's dead, and this and that. And I think he says something to the effect that, I wish your mother had an abortion or something along those lines. And I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, man, like, they wrote this guy as like, I don't know if you could write a worse parent on paper than this guy. Like, could it be any worse? Like, I don't think it could get any worse.
No, you absolutely hate this character.
Yeah.
And it's one of the times when that is actually the goal. They're trying to take you to that place with this character.
Oh, and they succeeded. But I gotta say, it was played as much, and I hated this character, and that was the goal, as you said. But that's due to the wonderful performance.
Oh yeah,
of Robert Patrick, right? Who, of course, was in Terminator 2.
He's great in the flashback scenes with his little mullet that he has going on.
Yeah.
He's great in the present day scenes. You get a sense of, at first when you meet him, you're not sure what to think of the guy.
Yeah.
But then when he is booked into jail, and you can see the respect that he gets immediately when he goes in there, everyone comes and kneels in front of them and starts saluting him.
Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah.
He's a bad dude, and Robert Patrick played both of those ends of the same character really well.
because at the beginning you hear him make those remarks. They're somewhat. I mean, they are racist, but it's like, not that you forgive it, but it's like you assume it's just some old crazy man rambling, about that's stuck in a bygone era that that's so backwards that he's just it is what it is. But then when you see that, it's like, oh, okay, now I understand why what's going on with this guy, but the interesting thing too is like you could see in their interactions, when Peacemaker gets out of when he goes to visit him for the first time. All Peacemaker wants to do is really gain his love and respect. And that's clear that it's never going to happen. But they do have a great scene where he's got this high-end, high-tech kind of closet.
Yeah.
Where he keeps all of Peacemaker's helmets and each one has a different function. So there is kind of like, he kind of aids, or you get the impression that he's like sort of like the tech guy for Peacemaker, right? And then but it's like it's amazing. I'm like, where did he get this thing? Like, what is this technology? I don't think they explained it, but hopefully that's picked up on in season 2 a bit. But it's like, what is this room? What is this technology? How does it do what it does? So I hope they really delve into that a bit more. And what we do learn along the way is the only kind of, outside of his brother who through the flashbacks, who's now deceased, the only kind of positive relationship connection that Peacemaker's had in his life is his relationship with his pet eagle, Eagly. And I don't know what it is about James Gunn and his ability to make you care about animal/CGI animal characters, but I think he's got the market cornered in Hollywood for that, because I want a plush like one of the Eagly now. Like I want to add that to my collection.
I want one big enough to hug me.
Yeah, that's
where I can wrap its wings around
like
me.
a remote control one that moves its wings. Yeah. And that scene made me laugh where Eagly's hugging him and he's like, Dad, get the phone, take a picture. And the dad's so disgusted, he just walks away. He's like, oh God. But yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Eagly's quite an adept weapon as well during the scene when they're running through the woods.
Yeah, later on in the season.
The trailer, yeah. Eagly's dive bombing cops and taking them out.
Yeah. It was a pretty badass action sequence, I gotta say. And it's amazing that thing was completely CGI, because you wouldn't suspect it. Like, it looked so real, as if it was there.
Yeah, it looked great.
And again, when he goes and meets the team, they poke fun at him. They're like, "You have a pet eagle?" And he's like, "Yeah, his name's Eagle. He's my best friend." He's like, and there's a whole joke where everybody around the table makes fun of the fact that.
Did you have a dog named Doggy?
Yeah, above the name. So that's kind of funny. And like I like the fact that in terms of Peacemaker's character, even though you over the course of the 8 episodes, you start to care about him. He doesn't lose his, talk first and think about what you're saying second. Like, he doesn't lose that crudeness. It's still there, like the straight out, I just say what I think, and Like, I'm glad they didn't take that away from him.
Yeah, they don't soften his character too much in the
Right, yeah.
course of bringing you around to liking him. He's still an arrogant douchebag and speaks and says the wrong thing at the wrong time, but you feel like at least his heart is good.
Yeah, like he's like, there's and the interesting thing is you're not really sure what the threat of the series is going to be until like near the end of the first episode, when you realize that the person that Peacemaker was shacking up with, shortly after he got out of prison, was an alien or a parasite known as what we later learned to be a butterfly, right?
Right.
By the way, that action sequence where he's going from like rooftop to rooftop, or room to room, that was very well choreographed, very well done. I had that was both action packed and hilarious because he's worried about the collection of stuff that he took from one of the apartment, the CDs from his apartment, right? Like he's a CD, like he's worried about carrying all the shit that he's got with him, while at the same time trying to engage in this to stay away from this killer and this killer alien parasite, and so it was a very well choreographed action sequence. Once we do learn that there is an alien threat, and Peacemaker and the team is sort of sent to take out a high-ranking, I guess, personnel in the Butterfly, group, we start to see Peacemaker having a rough time with taking them out, because I think the guys that the Butterfly is taking is that of a politician, right?
Yep.
But he's got like two kids, and that's where Peacemaker has an issue, because he's like, how do we know they're all aliens? He's like, I'm not going to shoot at kids. He's like, I need to know, right? And so he kind of freezes.
Yeah.
So you kind of see right there that he's a jerk. Some of the things he says are ridiculous, but the guy's got a moral code.
Well, he blatantly says, he wants peace, and he doesn't care how many men, women, and children he has to kill to get it.
But he walks back on that fairly easily. And he's like, no. But the kid, and even when he's trying to explain himself, he's like, the girl's cute, but the kid's a little ugly, but still, I don't, the boy's a little ugly, but I still am not going to kill him over it. And then that's when I think it was Vigilante, we haven't talked about yet, that stepped in. And what do you make of Vigilante as a character? Because he's more comedic relief in this. He's still crazy and a killer and an assassin, but he's less serious and more comedic relief in this. So what did you think of him compared to his comic book counterpart?
Vigilante is my favorite character of the series.
Yeah, I would agree.
He's so funny, and he's portrayed so well by the actor, and he's so ridiculous, the things that he says. I mean, he obviously suffers from some types of mental issues that he's not getting treatment for.
Yeah.
This guy definitely needs to be on medication and talking to someone, because he has some problems.
Yeah.
But as you said, he's comic relief, and I think he filled that role really well. I loved the scene with him and Vigilante, or with him and Peacemaker, where they're just destroying appliances.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's my favorite part of the show, to be honest. And I wasn't expecting that for a character that I didn't really have an attachment to going into the show.
Yeah, exactly. And the interesting thing is, it's like he really, like, he's like the ultimate Peacemaker fanboy.
Yep.
Like he just wants to, like, talk about wanting to be somebody's partner / sidekick. He's like that's he thinks he's Peacemaker's best friend, which, in fact, it's Eagly, but he lets him think that. Now, throughout the series, it's pretty clear that Peacemaker has a sort of jealousy and envy towards the superheroes, the DC superheroes, because like he's got a criticism or an insult for all of them. Like, you know, he accuses Aquaman of, you know, there's a scene when he's still in the hospital recovering, and the janitor is talking about, you're not a superhero, Aquaman's a superhero, you're not a real superhero. And then he accuses Aquaman of having sexual relations with fish, and that's a running joke throughout. Apparently, his neighbor, Peacemaker's neighbor, or Peacemaker's dad's neighbor, the older gentleman, is a massive like Batman fan, and Peacemaker criticizes Batman. He's like, Batman's a killer, and he's like, no, he's not. He's got a code against killing. He's like, yeah, but how often has he let the Joker get away, and the Joker's killed all these people? So indirectly, Batman's responsible for those deaths. When if he just took the Joker out, it would have solved the problem. So, he's critical of Batman for that. He accuses Wonder Woman of making eyes at him and wanting to get with him, and so like he's got a shot at every single one. I can't remember his shot at Flash, but he's got a dig at every, like he just, and you can sense that it's an envious kind of jealousy that he'd love to be a part of the Justice League if he could.
Well, he knows he's like C tier, right?
Yeah. He knows where
and Justice League is like the A team.
Yeah.
They're top tier, and that's what he wants to be, but I think he knows he's never gonna be on that level.
Yeah. And what I really liked was, as each episode progresses, you get a sense that the team is slowly becoming more and more of a team. In terms of, they're with each episode they gel a little bit more, and I like that, as opposed to them being thrown together and just automatically, oh yeah, we gel, we hang out all the time outside of work, we're a family. Like that happened gradually, and really probably by the last 2 or 3 episodes is when they got to that level. So I like the pacing at which that development occurred. What did you think of that? How do you think it was handled?
Well, they were building the team up at the same time that they were informing you that Myrn was a butterfly. So when Myrn was finally killed, it feels like that was almost the rallying point, or that was when they solidified and like they drew in together and brought the team together. So yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, at the beginning, Harcourt was very standoffish with everyone on the team. Economos was getting picked on a lot, and then he finally he finally gains Peacemaker's respect by the end of the series. So yeah,
when he comes in with the chainsaw, right?
Oh yeah, that was great.
That was the big moment. Yeah, that was actually, just to segue a second, that was probably one of my, it might have been my favorite action sequence of the piece, because they're trying to, what we learn is that butterflies have basically their food source, what keeps them alive. They've got it stored at different spots throughout the U.S. And Peacemaker and Hardcore and the crew through kind of Murn's advice, they wanna cut off that supply and essentially kill off. By doing that, would kill off the butterflies, right? So they track them down. They track the main shipment down to a warehouse, and where they're surrounded by, butterflies, and that kicks off the action sequence when they got to infiltrate the warehouse, and the fight ensues, and it starts with like Peacemaker, or no, Adebayo, when she's paired off with Peacemaker, and she says, just be cool, let me do the talking. And man, as soon as she says that, Peacemaker puts on his helmet, which basically allows him to identify.
Yeah, it's an X-ray. It gives him X-ray vision, so he can see the butterfly inside the head.
Right. So he sees that everybody in that friggin' warehouse is a butterfly, and he just starts wailing away, like killing them, and like she's freaking out because she's never really been in the field before, so like this is all new to her. And then was it Hardcore and Economos that gets stuck in the supply what looks to be a supply closet with a gorilla?
Oh, I remember the gorilla. I don't remember who was tracked on the supply closet.
I think it was, and then Peacemaker and Adebayo come in and rescue them. But either way, regardless, what's funny is when I saw that talking gorilla for a second, I thought, oh, is this some sort of nod to Grodd? Not thinking that it was infected with, or it was possessed by the butterfly. But that was really cool. Like the whole, even that, I was like, oh man, this proves that you could do Grodd in live action. I mean, we've already known that with the Flash TV series, but on a bigger budget scale, that kind of is a template. So yeah, you could do it. You could make it work.
Yeah, Grodd was the first thing on my mind as well. It's a DC property with seemingly a super intelligent gorilla that can move and fight. So that was the first thing that I thought of as well.
Yeah,
so they could do it.
There are a couple of wrenches, though. As we said, the team is building, but a couple of wrenches are thrown in their direction. Mainly that Amanda Waller put her daughter on the team, essentially to plant a diary in Peacemaker's possession that basically implicates him in just about everything. And that's a big betrayal. Like, that makes him public enemy number one. And that's a big betrayal for him, because him and Adebayo had really started to get really close. And then when he realizes it was her that sort of framed him, he becomes very standoffish towards her, and
well, he's really hurt by it because he thought they were friends.
Yeah.
And you can tell this is a guy who he's very abrasive and probably doesn't have too many friends in life. So he thought that they were like getting along, and then he certainly felt betrayed by her.
Right. But then they managed to patch things up, just in time for the big finale. But there were what we learn is that the butterflies have basically a bigger goal in mind, and that is basically, to they've been here for a long time, apparently, and they've seen how destructive we are to our world, and basically humanity is going on the wrong track, and they've got to fix things for us, and their way of fixing things for us is to take us over and rule us and make us do things their way. And so there's a cool moment near the end of the series where a bunch of butterflies land, or make themselves known and possess the entire, I guess, the police department in the town that they're in. And that was a really cool scene because it's like vintage James Gunn, like his classic work, and you see some of that body horror kind of aspect to it, and it was James Gunn really channeling his older stuff more so than the Guardians work that he had done. So that was a really cool scenario. And
yeah, you see them descending upon the town in their like little spaceships.
Yeah,
they all land and then take out and start. Yeah, when they take over the whole police force, that was a really cool scene. You're right.
And one of the butterflies was one of the ones that Peacemaker at one point was secretly keeping in a jar and feeding it. So, because basically what we learn is that the butterflies have this being that they call a cow, right? Because it provides them with their food source. Like they essentially they milk it, and that's where they get the liquid that they eat, for lack of a better word. So they eventually track. The big third act is, or the big finale battle is that they track them down and to this like farm, and as a fight ensues, Peacemaker is tasked by Hardcore to go track that, take out the cow, take out the chief lieutenants in the butterfly operation. So he goes, he's in the farmhouse, and the one that he's conversing with is the one that he kept in the jar, who's possessed the one of the main detectives that we meet throughout the series. And she's saying, you're one of the humans that treated me well, but we're actually trying to save you by taking you over, and by conquering Earth. We're going to save you because you guys have, you have, your politicians are corrupt. You don't believe in science. She's rifing off basically everything that's been sort of the worst of humanity since probably 2016 onward. Like she's rifed off everything, and as she's talking, not only does Peacemaker kind of pause and like really consider what she's saying, but I think us as an audience member also kind of pause. At least I did, and I'm like, you know what she's saying, she's not wrong about humanity is, in general. Like she's got some valid points here, but where I see growth in, exponential growth in Peacemaker, because she offers him, join us, help us, right? Be one of our main. And he's like, no, and he basically he uses one of his helmets and at a bio to basically kill the cow by impaling it as a human torpedo, essentially. Like that was the function of the helmet.
Activate human torpedo.
Yeah, which was hilarious and looked awesome at the same, and gruesome at the same time.
So gruesome.
But the fact that and let's be honest, the reason why Peacemaker chose humanity is because of the group of friends that he made. I think that was the driving force for his decision. In deciding to help him, and I don't think that's a decision the Peacemaker that we saw in the Suicide Squad would have made at that time. What do you think?
Or even earlier in this movie, I think he, as soon as he's out of prison, he tries to reconnect with his dad.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go so well. He ends up later in the series actually killing his own father.
Right, and that was tough on him. Yeah.
And these new friends that he's made are sort of like his new surrogate family. So he's lost the family that he had before, but now he's gained one in Task Force X.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about that.
Or this offshoot of Task Force X, whatever you want to, however you want to call it. But in the course of the big battle, Harcourt gets shot. Ultimately, she's saved, but there's a scene where, so to set this scene up, earlier at the beginning of the episode, when they're getting ready to track down the cow and take it out in the whole 9 yards, Adebayo calls her mother and says, I don't think we're going to be able to do this alone. Can you call in the Justice League? And basically, you don't hear the other end of the conversation, but the consensus is that you're going to have to go it alone, because the consensus is the Justice League probably won't be able to help out. At least that's what you get from Adebayo's reaction to what her mother is saying at the other end of the phone. After the fight has been done, the cow has been killed, the butterflies have been neutralized, Peacemaker and the crew are walking away from the scene. He's holding Harcourt, and in comes the Justice League. Now, what we see actual Jason Momoa as Aquaman, and actual Ezra Miller as Flash, and then the shadows. I mean, they're there, but they're in shadow of Wonder Woman and Superman.
Right.
For context, Flash is wearing his Justice League costume, not the costume of the new movie. So in terms of the timeline, this is pre-Flashpoint. This is where we are. It's pre-Flash. And Aquaman is wearing what we saw him in at the end of Aquaman. The classic.
The orange or the gold top with the green pants.
And there's a cool exchange. There's a funny exchange where Peacemaker says, you a-holes are late. You're too late. We already handled it. And then he tells Aquaman, go screw a fish. Right? Well, he says something else, but I can't say it because YouTube will probably take offense to that. So, but you get the gist of it. And then it's funny because Aquaman says, I hate that joke. And Flash barbs back, but it's true, isn't it? And then Aquaman tells Barry to F off. Now, they did this in a playful banter between two people who have become friends.
Right.
Right? I thought it was hilarious. And those two guys, or Aquaman using foul language in an R-rated Peacemaker show, I've got zero issue with it.
Yeah, no problem.
Of course, there's a segment of the internet that, how can you portray the Justice League using this language, and how can you make Aquaman the butt of the jokes again? And it's like, have you watched all 8 episodes? Like, do you get the tone that Aquaman or the Peacemaker is going for? Like, I don't know how people take offense to this.
I just think it's cool that Jason Momoa signed up for it.
and that Ezra was there too. Yeah, and also the other thing that people took offense to was we just told you we just went over which shadows were there of the Justice League. Absent were Cyborg and Batman.
Yep.
Now, it's very key to understand that, yes, Wonder Woman and Superman were in shadow. But those shadows, and this is weird to say, but you can corroborate this, those shadows were clearly meant to evoke the image of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman and Henry Cavill as Superman, correct?
I think you're correct.
So I understand, first of all, everybody should understand why Ray Fisher's shadow of Cyborg isn't there. Because Ray Fisher publicly came out and said, I refuse to work on a production produced by Walter Hamada. So for lack of a better phrase, and without getting into the whole sort of chaos, he essentially quit the role for various reasons. So of course it makes sense that Cyborg isn't there. Batman, we know Ben Affleck is making an exit and is being replaced, or I don't know if replaced is the right word, but they're ushering in Michael Keaton to take over for him. So it makes no sense to show Ben Affleck's Batman, even if it is in shadow. So I thought it was fairly straightforward why those two weren't shown. And James Gunn came out and said, I wasn't allowed to use them because of future projects. Because they have plans for future projects for both of those characters. Or certain events. The way he phrased it was, I can't use it because of spoilers for upcoming things. So he flat out said it. What I find intriguing, and I want to get your thoughts on this, they allow, now we know that Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot's coming back for Wonder Woman 3. But they allowed James Gunn to use a shadow of Superman that clearly is meant to evoke the Henry Cavill Superman. If he was getting replaced, Chris, do you think that they would allow essentially his version of Superman to be featured here?
Well, that's tough to say because, one could make the argument, well, if they were planning on using him in the future, why not use him in this cameo? Why not give the fans the Henry Cavill that they're looking for?
Trying to get Henry Cavill for that particular, I mean, the guy's busy as hell. Who knows if he had time to swing by and shoot. I mean, Aquaman and Flash were there because they were currently, filming stuff for DC, right? They were in the midst of doing stuff for DC.
That's true.
So to ask them to say, hey, I mean, and they weren't, it's not like they were shot together. They were shot separately and then via movie making techniques put together. Like the Flash portion was shot on set of Guardians of the Galaxy. So, they didn't have to be in the same room. But what I'm getting at, from my perspective, at the very least, the fact that they wanted Superman to be shown, and Superman in the public consciousness as, hey, this is the DCEU Superman, that they have some sort of plans for Superman.
One would hope.
Be it Cavill or not, they have plans for Superman, and that made me happy, at the very least. So I think that bodes well. I think because they could have easily not shown the Superman shadow. Like the cameo would have worked just as well if it was just Flash and Aquaman.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Because Superman and Wonder Woman didn't really do anything. They were just there.
Superman floated in the air. and Wonder Woman stood there with her shield. And so you know, I think that's encouraging. That they still want people to associate Superman with the Superman that they're used to. Whereas, again, I think because apparently they filmed people to portray the shadows of Ben Affleck's Batman and Cyborg, but then decided it's better we don't put these guys in for because of the way things play out. So the fact that they kept those in and took those two out, to me, it says to me that they want to start disconnecting people from thinking of Batman as Ben Affleck's version. You know, otherwise, why not put him in there? So I'm a little bit more confident after this Peacemaker finale of Superman, or at least the DCU Superman, having more to do in the future. I don't know that it'll be his own his own solo movie, but he'll be involved in other things because of this, the way this played out. I'm a little bit more confident now. So I don't know what your thoughts on that, or if you think I'm reading way too much into it.
No, I mean, obviously they included the characters they included for a reason. They, like you said, they want them to be in your consciousness.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there were discussions over who should we include and who are we allowed to include and why should we include them. So I think you're probably onto something there, that if they weren't planning on using Superman anytime in the near future, why include him in the Justice League that you're showing to us? Why not include like Shazam or something like that?
Right. Good point. So at the very end, you know, the tail end of the last episode, we get some very important scenes. So we get one scene where Adebayo basically comes forward and admits that Peacemaker is not responsible for any of those murders or any of those things that became public. It was all the U.S. government and Amanda Waller who purposely set that up. So basically, she outed the Suicide Squad and her mother. And we actually saw Viola Davis as Amanda Waller kind of reacting to the newscast.
Yeah, so we did.
That sets up some big ramifications for the Suicide Squad and potentially season 2. We also see a tender moment between Peacemaker and Hardcore.
Yeah.
She wakes up and realizes that, or has been told that he's been here the whole time. He hasn't left your side. And, you know, they kind of hold hands and she sheds a tear. They both shed a tear. So now, at the very least, it's strengthening the friendship and the core of the team. But also, I would venture to say that could we see like an actual relationship with these two start to play out?
Well, I hope so, because that's showing us the growth and the progress from the scene earlier in the season when he sees her entering a bar and he goes into the bar to try to hit on her, and she makes it painfully clear that that is not going to happen. So I think that they developed a genuine affection for each other throughout the events of the series, and I would hope that they would actually end up together, because that adds, it adds a little bit of sweetness to it.
Economos, unfortunately, has to go back to work at Belle Reef.
Yep.
He seems to be in a really dank, lonely, office. But the cool thing is, he pulls out the picture that Emilia Hardcore took and sent in that group chat, and puts it on his desk, and that's a symbol of he feels part of the group, part of the team. He feels accepted now. Whereas throughout earlier in the series, you didn't really get that sense. In fact, he makes a great speech during the series where he's undercover and he's at threat of being found out by the butterflies, and he basically, the team hears on the other end of the hidden speaker that, or the wire tap that they have on him, that he wasn't like, he didn't, all those things the Peacemaker said about him, like all the insults, hurt him, and like he basically revealed how, like, when he was younger he was picked on, he was the loner, and so you see a progression even for him, even though he's going to go back to a crappy situation. That picture and having it on the desk is a symbolic thing that he feels part of the family, part of the group, part of the team. So I like that. And then the end is very interesting because you have Peacemaker sitting on the porch.
Yep.
You got the one butterfly with a little bit of the cow's milk, if you will, the last remaining morsel of the cow's milk that Peacemaker feeds to it. So like, that's tragic in and of itself, because that thing is gonna die once that the alien honey, for lack of a better word, runs out. That thing is dead. So that's sad. And then beside Peacemaker sits the ghost of his father. So I wonder if in season 2 he's going to have to wrestle still with the influence and the advice of his father rolling around in his head.
You think it's going to be like a Dexter situation where he's visualizing his dad and his dad's like haunting him still?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. What do you think?
Well, it certainly happened a couple of times at the end of this series, so
yeah,
I'm all about it. If that'll keep Robert Patrick in the fold for a little while after being killed, then I'm all about it.
Yeah. So it's a cool. It was a kind of, there was a happiness and a sadness to that ending, and I like the balance of it. And also, we forgot. I should mention, Batmite is name dropped.
That's true.
In this series, and James Gunn said, now Batmite is canon. I don't think that means Batmite is going to show up anywhere in a Batman-related project. I don't think Michael Keaton encountered Batmite all of a sudden. But
that would be cool.
I'd welcome it. Why not? Embrace the crazy, embrace the wacky. But it's cool. The little name drop that was in there. Yeah, that was fun.
Who else we haven't mentioned yet is Judo Master.
Oh, yes. Talk a little bit about him.
Judo Master was just the coolest, man.
Yeah.
That first fight between him, Peacemaker, Vigilante, and Harcourt, that was so badass.
And the amount of times they capture him and he gets away.
Yeah, and he keeps escaping.
So what do you think is going to happen? Do you think we see more of him?
Yeah, I think so. They left him in a good place at the end of the series,
Like, I think he'll be back, and maybe this time he'll be part of the team.
Well, I think the team is going to have to take... I'm not sure if... It seems like Task Force X is on the outs, so I'm not sure what form the team takes in its next iteration, but it would be cool to see him actually with Peacemaker this time, because there's a lot of potential for really good banter between the two of them.
Okay. All right. He was a cool character, and I definitely want to see more of him. So yeah, but I don't know. This series was a blast. I had so much fun with it, and I honestly liked it a lot more than I ever thought I would. Such such a pleasant surprise. And it's no doubt that, no question as to why it got renewed for season 2, because the viewership on HBO Max, like the premiere at the time was the highest rated HBO Max original series episode, and then the finale then became the highest rated HBO Max original series episode. So it got steady viewership throughout.
Who would have thought that a Peacemaker show would get more viewers than the Sex and the City revamp?
Yeah. And, I just like that because, you always got those things on Twitter. Oh, who asked for this? Who asked for this? Or the people that are boycotting WB were so sure that Peacemaker was going to flop. And here we are. It's setting high ratings, and it's getting renewed for season 2. I mean, every time these people try to boycott WB, Chris, it seems like WB succeeds. Like they get Aquaman made $1 billion when they were going to boycott Aquaman. Remember?
Joker made $1 billion.
Joker made $1 billion. Peacemaker gets a season 2, and now they're threatening to boycott the Batman. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sure Warner Brothers doesn't mind your boycotts at this point. Yeah,
it doesn't seem to be harming them very much in the long run.
Yeah. But again, who would have thought Peacemaker would have been this successful? I certainly didn't have that on my bingo card for 2021. But I think the success of this bodes well for like the Green Lantern series that they have in the works, because that's going to give HBO Max the confidence to say, yes, we should be pumping money into this, and also pumping more money into other DC projects. So this is good all the way around for DC projects in general on HBO Max, not just for season 2 of Peacemaker. So I'm thrilled for the success, and I'm extremely happy that there's going to be a season 2. So with that said, is there anything you want to bring up before we give our rating?
No, this was just it was a lot of fun. It was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be going into it. I wasn't sure that I could buy John Cena in a lead role for a whole 8-episode season, but he really had me, man. I bought in.
Yeah. I think as an actor, he gave his best performance yet, especially with the emotional scenes.
Like after having to kill his father, and when he thought Eagly was dead. Yeah, those are some emotional scenes, and he had to dig deep for that.
In a lot of his other roles, he never had to go that deep, that deep down and do that. Like for Bumblebee, as much as I love Bumblebee, like didn't require him to do a lot of emotional acts. So I think this was his best performance yet. Judo Master was a cool character. As you said, Vigilante. And I just think Harcourt's a badass. I thought she was great. And yes, for the people watching, she's on the list. If anybody wants to keep up with my list, but the Multiverse Wives list. But all right. So with that all being said, what's your final? Let's letter grade for these. I think
letter grade. I give it an A-. It was really enjoyable. There was a lot to like about it, not too much to dislike, and I'm looking forward to season 2.
Yeah, A- for me as well. I'm on the same page as you. The only reason it doesn't get an A+, really, I'll tell you, is like I dug the whole butterfly angle, but the alien, the alien invasion, the aliens infecting humans and essentially turning them into zombies like characters was kind of a little bit of a rehash of what we saw in the Suicide Squad. It was a little bit similar, but they still made it work. But so because of the overt similarity there, I knocked off a little bit. But otherwise, fantastic, and I can't wait to see more from this crew, these characters, and this creative team. So thankfully, there's a season 2. But yeah, that brings this episode to a close. Chris, if people want to talk to you about some more DC, where can they track you down on social media?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Chris N. Harrelson, or you can search for Commodore Schmidlap and I'll pop up. Or you can respond in the Facebook group when Adam posts about this episode, and I will be. Oh, you know what? I have YouTube now too, so you can comment on the YouTube videos, and I will respond there too.
Awesome, yeah. So, and if you want to track me down, you can. It's at Adam_NeesFan on Twitter. The podcast network has its very own Twitter account, which is at MMNPDC. We have a Facebook group, as Chris mentioned, which is in the description below. Click that. I'll add you, and we can continue the conversation there. But remember, until next time, Peacemaker is forever. From his first crude remark to the last. So long, everybody.